Let's go ahead and move on to validating the reducer and the index orient, or rather reducer, orient, and scale. These parameters are fairly straightforward, so we'll just go back to the REST API controller and paste this information. Looks like I keep I forgot I need to replace the response data, so let me undo that and do it again because we updated the response data for this one to include orient and scale now. And yeah, these are fairly straightforward. So the reducer just has a list of valid reducer methods, mode, mean, min, max, etc. So we just check to make sure it's one of those and give the appropriate message if not. Orient is similar. It's a list of values, so basically the same. And the scale just needs to be a number. So to test that, we try and cast it as a float because it will come in as a string. And if it works, then we're good. If not, then we'll get a value error and we'll raise the message that it must be a number. Okay, so now let's go and test those parameters in Postman. First, without reducer. Oh, wait for Tethys to restart. They all have default values, so we aren't required to provide them. So let's add reducer mean. So that's a correct value, so it should work. Let's set this to something else like foo. We get a message foo is not a valid parameter. Must be one of these. Great. So I'll switch it back to mean. Let's turn on the orient, again with the correct value first, which works. Let's change it to foo, which is not a correct value. We get a message. Change it back. And finally scale. 250 is a number, so it works if we say foo, which is not a number. Scale parameter must be a valid number. Great. So we're getting some good feedback on our parameters. The last thing we need to do is validate our geometry parameter. So let's go back to the REST module. We'll add a couple of imports that we're going to be using. The GeoJSON module is one of them, which comes with Tethys. So we don't need to add a new dependency. And then we'll go and grab the code from the tutorial, again replacing the response data dictionary. And here we're using an optimistic approach. We assume they give us a geometry string, and we'll just attempt to convert it to Python objects using geojson.loads. If it's not valid GeoJSON, it will raise an exception, GeoJSON decode error, and then we'll return the appropriate bad request message. Let's go ahead and go back, not the browser, to Postman. Turn on the geometry and send that. And that one worked.